This is a quick overview on how we can take a basic line drawing, something similar to this, and it can be turned into a sculpture relief project where we have depth and it has this bit of a shadow box look. Every single line in the picture is created by creating an edge of paper. So if you were to ignore all these leftover pencil lines, you would still see the lines because of the three-dimensional edge in play. What you want to do is to establish your frame. So I have a piece of computer paper already, and I'm going to draw my area in here, or I'm going to trace it. Now I can see through this drawing just enough to be able to trace this. If you can't see through it, you can use a window, or you can also use a computer screen gently to act as a light box. If you use a computer screen, please be very careful not to press on the computer screen. Now right here, this line ends there, so I need to make sure that it continues to the edge. All of the lines have to become closed lines. In other words, can I have any open-ended shapes on this? Because we cannot cut out a line, but we can cut out shapes. So if this path were to end, or if this path were to end like that, I would need to make sure that it closes off somewhere. Here we've got some foliage, so I can't leave this path open. I would need to make sure that it closes up to this line so that these are defined shapes when it's completed. This is the easiest part, but then the really tricky part is planning here. We need to label the layers to help us build this out. So I'm going to establish what is the furthest part in the space, and in this case it's the sky or the background, so I'll do a 1 there. And then the next thing coming up would be the sun, so I'll call that a 2. And everything else in the picture is in front of the sun at least. The areas I'm going to look closely at though are the horizon line here overlapping the sun. But this path comes into play. These are overlapping the path. So my number 3 layer will be the path, and then these will overlap the path like that. Finally, the tree is overlapping these two lines here, so I'll call that a 5. And backtracking, I know that all this sky is a 1, but also this is a 1 and this is a 1 because that's showing through. At this point, the next thing overlapping the tree trunk would be this foliage here, so that's a 6, and then this foliage is the 7. Coming down to the foreground, I will call this an 8, and I do believe I forgot to trace, and I'll trace that real quick. So that's the kind of thing that can happen, and I'm going to call that an 8 as well. Okay, so the way this turns into the project is the very first layer is going to be a blank piece of paper, and that is going to create the layer 1. And then I'm going to take another identical piece, and I will trace everything on it that is the layer 1, and I will remove it. So an example of that would be this piece right here. So as you can see, it lines up, and everything that was a 1 has been cut out. If you can't cut this out very easily with scissors, you'll notice I actually made a cut right here, and that allows me to get into those cuts a little easier. And for these small areas, I can help you with an X-Acto knife when I'm with you in class. Then for step 2, as you can see in my original drawing, that was only the sun. So what I'm going to do this time is remove everything that's a 1, and this time I'll also remove everything that's a 2. And then when I lay that down, the sun is revealed. And then I'm just going to continue that process, and usually it actually gets a little bit easier. I'm going to remove everything that is a 1, 2, and 3. And the 3 was my path right here. And then I'll continue the process. I'm going to remove everything that was a 1, 2, 3, and then I'll remove everything that's a 4. So more and more is going to be removed throughout this process. And then I'm removing everything that's 1 through 5, which means no tree trunk on this layer. and you just continue the process. I've removed everything 1 through 6 at this point. And then I've removed everything that's 1 through 7, revealing only the 8s in the foreground. And then the final part would be to put one finished frame on top. And when all this is cut out and you're satisfied with how everything is laid out, then we can glue it together. And then we can talk about painting it and making it monochromatic. It seems easy, but you got to really think it through. Let me know if you need any help the next time I see you in class.